thoughts about where you and your committee and the state senate may be headed on this issue of broadband development across the state.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you all for the hard work you put in. I think that report has been very useful, and obviously we're very excited with Senator Bach and the redistricting or the reorganization committee. Obviously gave me the chairman of Jobs, Agriculture, and Rural Development, but along with that, with my interest that I have had in the telecommunications sector in the past, brought that into our jurisdiction as well. So I think by bringing you folks into Vermont, we show that this is a priority of ours. I think we're spending some committee time on it. We're looking forward to that. I think other than myself, we have many new members. I know that Representative Johnson and myself have worked on these issues for my entire career in this. So I think that we want to bring you guys in. It's our second really official hearing. Obviously look forward to your report. And Brian Martinson, my committee administrator. Who else are we have testifying?
Bill and Connect Minnesota and Jack Geller from U of M.
Right.
Crookston will be giving a presentation as well.
So I think it'll be very important. We just want to make sure that members are up to speed. And again, I think in the past it's been part of the energy and utility telecommunications. Energy kind of rose to the top. But I think we're at a point now that we really want to focus some time on energy on these issues. So we look forward to hearing what you guys have to say tomorrow, and then working together with you.
I know that Senator Schmidt is quite interested. He's reached out to a variety of members of the task force about interest in promoting the ideas around the task force report, so I know he'll be a good ally in doing that with you, and that would be great.
That's a good point. We met individually with nearly every member, both Democrats and Republicans, and just talked about kind of their ideas, and my vice chairman, Senator Schmidt, does have a keen interest in telecom, so that's good. But many of the other members mentioned it too, especially in rural Minnesota where we face a few more challenges maybe than other places. So.
People have questions for Senator Sparks or Representative Johnson. Folks on the phone, I know sometimes it's hard, you're on mute and then you're trying to get off mute to be able to ask a question, and we'll pause and let you get off mute.
Madam Chairman, this is Maureen.
Hi, Maureen. Go ahead.
Yeah, in the report, we actually did not have as many recommendations in terms of health care as what we probably will have in the future as we shape them. We wanted more. We wanted to find more clarity, a little bit more distinction in terms of what we were, either giving for direction or making for recommendations. And that being said, are there any comments in particular about healthcare at this point from when you looked at the report and reviewed it?
Maureen, can you also tell everyone about your other task force service? Because I think that's important. There's Maureen is our member who has overlap on two governors' task forces.
Right. I also am on the Commissioner of Health task force for e-health. I'm on the e-health advisory committee for Minnesota. And that has spent a lot of time in the last couple of years working with the electronic medical record and meaningful use and interoperability, personal health records, and those kinds of applications. So and some in terms of telehealth. Telehealth now is taking more of a lead because many facilities, healthcare facilities, have adapted already. Have adopted the electronic medical record. So they're now okay. Now there's a little bit more room for some other things, and telehealth is one of those that is in that arena as well. The other thing, the other interface that I have is that I am the chair for the Greater Minnesota Telehealth Broadband Initiative, which is the FCC pilot project, the Federal Communications Commission's pilot project for bringing discounted broadband to nonprofit healthcare facilities in Minnesota, and that brings 5.4 million into Minnesota over a three-year operational period. So it involves about 120 healthcare facilities in Minnesota. So a few overlaps there, but any comments in terms of, were you thinking, I had kind of hoped that we would be able to have more in terms of healthcare in there, but it just seemed, that without some of the infrastructure in place, we can't really make the recommendations. So any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, the thought that comes to my mind is I think that some of the infrastructure can be driven to a large extent by the need for the healthcare and telemedicine. It just seems like such an obvious area that we are going as a country and in our communities. So I think the more we can, at least for membership on the committee I have, we can educate members and all of us about the importance and the value of being able to access our medical and hospital needs and so forth through broadband. I think it'd be most helpful, and if there's some ideas that you have that can further that along, I don't have anything specific in mind, but I just know that that's the kind of thing that's going to really drive adoption, that's really going to drive the infrastructure is healthcare, because it's just such a prominent issue.
Yeah, thanks for the comments, Grace.
So I think it would be, in the final few minutes that we have together today, we'd love to ask you, are there things that you are interested in us looking at in the next year, or there may be things that come up in this session that you may be interested in more collaboration between what ideas you are hearing surface on the legislative side of things and things that we could be looking at, researching, using as we're good at chewing over these ideas and looking at all different sides of them too. So if that's helpful, but I don't know if there's anything specific that you've already thought about or heard or has come up in the past that you would like to see us. You already heard we're definitely going to be focusing more on healthcare as a piece of this. There's work to be done on mobile to understand further what's happening with mobile in the state and understand it more deeply, since we only got into that at the end of last year, but maybe there's other things.
Two things that come to mind. The ones that you mentioned are certainly important, the healthcare issue and the role of 4G, LTE, and wireless. I don't know how that's going to move things forward, but redundancy, I guess I'm not clear how well we are set in the state for that, as well as security issues. The extent to which the task force can address those kinds of issues as well, I think would be helpful.
Well, I think that, as the technology changes and continues to change, it's going to be kind of our charge as the members around here to try to keep up to pace. Obviously, government can't move quite as quickly as the technology, but I think that there's a role for each of us to play. And I appreciate your comments, Madam Chair, on the workforce development piece too. I think that's going to be a big part of what we need to do as well. But I think we're going to continue to listen to you. I think that healthcare is very important. From the area of the state that I'm fortunate to represent, Mayo Clinic's a real leader who's been out front in that area, and we're able to have a lot of those rural jobs that are able to stay at home until they can do some of those things. It's very important. But I think we also have to realize that we do face some challenges because there's such a large geographical state that it's going to be tougher for us to maybe meet some of those goals as some smaller communities. But I think we're all trying to work towards the same common goal. I think we have two good leaders, and obviously with your help and all the people in this room, I think there's some room to do some things. And obviously the governor's showing he's got a real interest in this area as well.
We really appreciate that. One thing that we talked about in Representative Johnson's committee, and I certainly will raise it for your committee, Senator Sparks, but it's a good thing to raise when we talk about redundancy, is the prospect of this FirstNet collaboration with the federal government going forward. One of the, and I guess we point out that particular part of the report that talks about the need for more collaboration and oversight in that area. Right now it's a area and issue of public safety. But there are potential upside benefits for other areas, potentially education, healthcare. There could be a lot of, if it goes forward, there'd be a lot of dark fiber with it that both can add to the redundancy issue, but it also, I think, needs, I think we all thought it probably needed a more holistic look at it. And certainly the legislature and the administration leading at the top are good places to start. Person Johnson.
As you're talking, a couple other things come to mind. One is having to do with funding. That's the CAF funding, the Connect America funding. I would like to know more about that and the extent to which that's helpful for moving broadband deployment forward. And then also like to know, ideally, what has been the effect of the stimulus funding? I know it's laid out in here all the different places that received some, but I'm not clear on what the measurable results were from that effort. So the extent to which, always we're always interested in measurable results and how one can affect pushing things forward. The extent to which that can be provided certainly is real helpful.
Madam Chair, do you know too, I mean, obviously we have a very, I have an open door policy, I know that Representative Johnson does too, and we work with many of the people in this room. Is it the intention of this group to try to put together some kind of legislation coming out of the report? I mean, the report is nice, but at the end of the day, are we gonna try to bring some consensus here? And
Representative Johnson, before you entered the room, talked about that he's very interested in coordinating with us the introduction of either a package or pieces of a package. He kind of outlined for us some areas that he thinks are promising for the 2013 session, what is in the governor's budget, the Office of Broadband Development. Of course, we are strongly supportive of making sure that goes forward. But also you mentioned a couple other items that are of interest. We did talk a little bit about the need to introduce pieces of this package that may take longer because they're more expensive or they need more discussion in the legislature. But we would love to see the items that we have outlined authored by members of the legislature this year, and would be really thrilled to have the governor sign some of them into law. So that would be great.
thank you guys.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.